true politician.
All right, I'd like to go ahead and call the public hearing section of the Warrenton Board of Alderman meeting for Tuesday, January 21st, 2020 into session. Neil, if you'd like to come forward to the podium, please.
All right, good evening, Mayor and Board of Aldermen. For your consideration, tonight's public hearing will be the conditional use permit for the villages of Warrior Ridge. Motion for approval passed 7-0 with 3 absent at the January 2nd, 2020 Planning and Zoning Commission meeting. We ask that the ordinance of the City of Warrenton be made part of the record by reference. The comprehensive plan of the City of Warrenton be made part of the record by reference. The package shown is CUP-65 on the agenda be made part of the record by reference, which includes the publication notice of tonight's public hearing that was posted in the Warren County record.
Duly noted, thank you. If anybody'd like to speak only on the conditional use permit conditional use permit 65, please step forward to the podium, state your name, and you have 5 minutes to speak. Not see anybody, we'll move on and we will close the public hearing section of the meeting and open up the regular Warrenton Board of Aldermen meeting for January 21st, 2020. If you would, please rise and say the Pledge of Allegiance with us.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Chief, I believe you have an introduction.
I do. I'd like to introduce Zachary Jarvis. He's our newest academy recruit. You'll see him in our uniform this summer.
Welcome aboard and good luck. Next is the consent agenda.
We have the regular meeting minutes from January 7th, 2020.
I'll entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda items as submitted.
So moved.
Motion made by Alderman Dyer, seconded by Alderman Schultz. Roll call vote.
Alderman Miller,
Yes.
Alderman Schultz,
Yes.
Alderman Ock,
Yes.
Alderman Miller,
Yes.
Motion passes 5-0 with 1 absent. Next is hearing from the public. If you have a topic you'd like to speak about, please step to the podium. We'll give you 5 minutes to speak. State your name clearly into the microphone so everybody knows who you are. Not see anybody, we'll move on. Next is the Board of Alderman comments.
You know me, I've always got something. I would just like to let people know that I was pleased to be able to attend the Chamber Economic Development thing that took place last Tuesday. Steve Etcher spoke. It's always enjoyable for me to hear Steve talk and give an overview of the past and present projects. I'm a huge supporter of the Economic Development Group. I think they're in the trenches every day trying to bring more business and industry to our area, so I'd like to commend them for that. Once again, he stressed the fact that current and future employers are seeking a skilled workforce. Currently, we don't have a skilled workforce. We are not able to fill that need, and we kind of continue to kick the can down the road in regard to doing something about a skilled workforce. I'm speaking strictly for myself, but I believe our growth is clearly going to come from people with higher paying jobs, and we can only do that by providing people a place to get more education. So Steve was very informative, and I was happy to be there. So that's all I have.
Nice, thank you. Anyone else? start off my comments with saying that hats off to the city employees who built the carport. What would you consider it? It looks good.
Covered parking.
I've heard a lot of people comment about it, how well lit it is, and how nice it looks. So good job.
Yeah, they did an outstanding job on that.
Did it help with the last snow and everything?
And it'll help even more now that we're going to equip our cars with block heaters. So
It'll
when
be
it's this
a
cold
bit
out, we
easier.
keep them plugged in.
Cool. That's great. That's great. I too went to, well, at least the Chamber of Commerce, Warrenton Chamber of Commerce's fundraising, their award ceremony would be it. I have since been banned from going to any type of fundraisers since I bought the puppy, and my wife has now banned me for a temporary period. I think she's ripping out what hair she has. So, but it was fun. It was great. It was good to see the public come. It was good to see the awards given out to a lot of people that deserved it. So, if you haven't read the articles or seen it in the paper, I thought it was pretty good. So, next is the public input on Main Street Overlay District property maintenance requirements. As I understand and look out in the crowd, there's a lot of people that would probably either like to speak or are here to say something or at least hear the conversation. We're going to ask you to each one come up to the mic if you're wanting to talk and state your name. You'll have 5 minutes to speak. It's open. Go ahead.
My name is Josh Poor. I live and work in downtown Warrenton. I had just 2 quick questions to start. I hope you'll take note of the questions and answer them before the end of the meeting. Which alderman is willing to say on the record they will be the one to sponsor the bill for the code changes? Also, why was the agenda for the meeting not made available to the public until just this morning? I won't address many of the particulars of the proposed codes other than to say they are not codes that are certain and are not likely to be applied equally. There are vague phrases such as good condition, good repair, and so on, which would be so subjective that anything could be construed as a violation. I'm certain that no one in this room can articulate the difference between sound condition, good condition, and good repair. I also found it bizarre that the building commissioner would not be the person to decide if a building was being brought up to code properly. Additionally, it is illogical to think that taking money via fines from downtown businesses would be a way to promote and encourage new business in the district. Finally, whether or not the codes will be enacted supposedly is an outcome that has not been predetermined, but the city put a finger on the scale by sending out a letter in favor of the codes. I do want to address what is the alleged purpose of the proposal, which is to preserve the character, buildings, and structures located within the district. Think about what is in downtown Warrenton. You have a church. Are you willing to threaten people at the church with fines if their building does not look as nice as a tiny group of people think it should? Do you think threatening a church with fines is in keeping with the character of downtown Warrenton? You have business owners in downtown Warrenton. Not all of them part of the downtown association. Not all of them are in support of the measures. I noticed that these people were not mentioned in the letter that the city sent out. Business owners are trying to make a living, creating jobs, and paying taxes. I'm sure everyone on the board would say they want them to stay here. Do you think they're more likely or less likely to stay if constant new regulations and threats of prosecution are being made? You also have residents downtown. If beautification enhancements must be made to a building, the property owners themselves would have to spend more money to satisfy the whims of a few people. If that is a landlord, it's possible they will pass it along, the beautification cost, to the tenant. Do you want a beautification code to impact the rental market? If you support this measure, it indicates that you believe that the character of downtown Warrenton lies within the buildings. I believe that the character of downtown lies within the people who live, work, and visit there. I pay close attention to the board meetings. I don't hear words like liberty or freedom talked about very often in these meetings. If these codes are put in place, you will have taken away the liberty of property owners over a matter of outward vanity. I also find it appalling that city funds were spent and city employees were used to create and circulate a letter promoting the limiting of property owners' rights. Alderwoman Dyer, you have spoken out against these codes openly. I do hope you hold to that position, and I appreciate you taking a pro-liberty stance on this issue. I'm running for alderman in Ward 1, and I'm proud to be opposed by influential individuals in town who would seek to control me, yet know they never will. I would say to those people, I'm glad we both have a clear understanding of my principles. If I am an alderman, I will defend liberty on this issue and all issues. Some aldermen are concerned with the beauty of the buildings of Warrenton. I'm concerned with the liberty of the people of Warrenton. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Can we answer a couple questions? One particularly regarding the public notice. There was adequate public notice according to the... Is it on?
It's off. There you go.
Can you address the question relative to public notice of this? I mean, I think everything, as far as I know, in terms of notifying the public, was done within the normal procedure. Was there anything unusual about the public notice on this?
If I can answer that, we actually took the additional step of putting the code on file and putting a notification, which is what's required by statute. We've already adopted the property maintenance code, and we could have just put it in the overlay district, but because it was a change to downtown, we did was it 90 days, Melody? Where we had it on file in a 90-day comment period. We did receive written comments before today. When we received those written comments, we worked with those property owners in the downtown district to modify the ordinance. For example, putting in the property improvement plan because of some of the cost of it, taking into account, expenses and, the maintenance of the property and whatnot. So yeah, we did, I think, have a very productive 90-day comment period. The board discussed it during that 90-day comment period, and we took those comments and changes to modify the ordinance.
Harry Scott. I just have a couple questions and I guess comments on this. Has anybody in the city or anywhere else actually done a study or anything of how enacting this is going to benefit the downtown or its residents? Is this, was this done for, I guess, for what reason is this being done, I guess? It seems like you're imposing punitive fines and criminal penalties. Would it not work better to maybe have focus groups and get an agreement and some standard with some stated objectives and demonstrate how to meet those objectives on the downtown area? And I think some of my stuff has already been mentioned, so I can kind of skip over, the good condition portion. I guess my other question is what prevents the administration or employees from selectively misapplying what I consider kind of unclear requirements. These codes that I read that you did were reviewed and amended for the residential occupancy code, and now have been reviewed and amended for the Main Street District. 304.6 and 304.13 now have two meanings depending on whether you're a residential code or whether you're in the downtown overlay. I don't know if that's going to be future changes that will make the code different, the same code different in different areas. I think this is going to cause some confusion with the code enforcement officials as to which code to follow if you've got multiple codes, multiple amendments to the codes, I guess. Let me rephrase that. Under the property improvement plan, it says may submit, doesn't say must, and the city administrator shall consider. It seems to give more authority to an administrator that has no knowledge or understanding of property maintenance. Wouldn't it better to have a group comprised of zoning, city, downtown association to review and make recommendations on these repairs? In line C, it gives the city administrator authority to request anything they didn't deem relevant. I believe that needs to have a few limitations, although they may be able to get Trump's taxes out of that. But the violation and penalty seems a little excessive. It says it's a misdemeanor, but since there's imprisonment, it becomes a criminal offense. And the daily will stack up pretty quickly. Seems like the property owners this probably would affect probably don't have the money to make those repairs and will most likely end up serving time and probably losing their property, which will probably cause those buildings to be torn down because nobody's going to purchase them and make the repairs necessary to keep them. So I think you're going to lose some buildings because of this. I think I kind of covered that. I think that for existing property owners, it may have an impact. I know that I own property in downtown. I don't necessarily have a problem with the ordinances. I just think it's kind of a vague ordinance that could be abused, and that's really all I have to say. Thank you.
Can I respond to a couple of the comments that I want to clarify? This language is not language that the city wrote. The city has the authority, like every municipality in the state of Missouri, to adopt property maintenance codes, building codes, electrical codes, and make amendments to those codes by state statute. These are actually subsections that are part of the International Property Maintenance Code. So we have to adopt this language, and we can modify it later in order to properly adopt by state statute property maintenance code provisions. As you'll see, this only addresses decorative features, chimneys and towers, window skylights and door frames, overhang extensions, exterior walls, and protective treatments. It's not a comprehensive adoption of the property maintenance code. It's the same property maintenance code that applies to the rest of the city of Warrenton with these additional features based on receiving comments and feedback about wanting to improve the downtown area. With regards to the any other information deemed relevant by the city administrator, that was actually a request of a downtown business owner that said, well, what if I want to come in and I want to show you this information? That person wanted a general provision that didn't restrict or exclude certain amount of information that may be personal, it may be in an estate or a trust or something like that. So we actually wrote that at the request of a downtown business. I know there's been multiple comments made about the punishment section. I've been the prosecutor here in the city of Warrenton for almost 20 years, I believe. Nobody's ever gone to jail in Warrenton for a property maintenance code issue, at least while I've been the municipal prosecutor. That is the range of punishment set by statute. We have to have that in the ordinance in order to make the ordinance enforceable by Missouri law. It's not that anybody is saying that, you're going to be fined or you're going to go to jail or anything like that. And in fact, you potentially could be.
Legally possible.
Right. It's legally possible to be put in jail for a lot of things, but that doesn't mean it actually happens. Is it possible? Is it possible? Yes. Is it probable? No. But let me finish. Let me finish what I'm saying really quick here. The final thing I want to say is we have a docket that we've been doing, I think, 12 years, the property maintenance code docket. I don't think I've seen anybody in here that's been on our property maintenance code docket, but it's a docket where the property owners come to the city, and we work with them and give them as much time as possible and give them resources and referrals to try to get the properties cleaned up. And it's been very successful. And with regards to your questions about fines, the people that can't afford fines, the city has a community service program that we work with them to do community service through the city. So it's not just about fine money or taking people's buildings or putting them in jail, okay? This section of punishment has to be in the ordinance and by Missouri law in order to make it enforceable. And every ordinance in the city of Warrenton has the same punishment that you're subject to, and every ordinance in the city of Warrenton every day is the same violation by state statute. So I just want to make sure that you guys are aware of why that had to be in there, why this comment here about, any additional information that was actually made by somebody that commented during the comment period saying, hey, I saw this, I'd like to see some changes, and we took that and worked that into the ordinance. Thank you, Mayor.
Anyone's free to come up and speak.
I have a question. I don't own a building.
Just let your name first.
Maria
Thank you.
Bayer. I don't own a building, but my business is in a building. My only concern is there something allowed with the city that can help the building owners that can't afford to fix their buildings. I understand what you guys are saying as far as there are some buildings that have plywood on them and for windows and stuff. I get it. You want it to look nicer. I get it. But is there any help from the city or any other organization that can help some of the owners if they don't have the money to put into these buildings? That's my only question.
Terry, can you respond to that?
Actually, I think Cindy Burke will respond to that from the WDA.
Thank you, Cindy.
I'm Cindy Burke. I'm here representing the Warrenton Downtown Association tonight. I'm going to come out strongly saying we do support these measures. Simply, part of me is sad that we have to put this measure out there because I would like to believe everyone who owns a piece of property has pride in it and would take care of it, and that we don't have to have a police officer go out and tell them to put something on the side of the building so bricks don't fall off on somebody's head. It was my understanding that you would be jailed only if your building was a threat to public safety. And I know there's one building that there was plywood put on the side of it because bricks were falling on Main Street. I also understand the concern that it's vague. I read that as well, and I know that we can work to make that a little tighter. At the same time, in order for us to improve downtown, some of these absentee landowners who are doing nothing but letting that building fall apart need some help bringing that up to speed so that we can entice more people to come down. People come down and talk to our realtors and say, what's down here? Why should I come down here? Look at these buildings with boarded up windows and no tuck pointing happening on these beautiful old buildings. In response to is there help? We are working to set up a grant program that would provide a 50% match for those people because that was our concern. We know there are property owners in the downtown area that don't have the resources to do the painting that needs to be done. So the WDA is working very hard to set up a grant program and work with those property owners to help them to bring their property up to speed. That's what I have.
Cindy, excuse me, how do you plan to fund this? Explain a little bit more to me about this grant situation that you guys have going.
Well, what I forgot to tell you is that we actually received a grant from the Missouri Main Street program that you guys helped us get the first grant with. And we are actively working in an storefront activation grant to get the vacancy a few doors west of me filled over the next 18 months. We have opportunities to apply for both state grants, for facade grants, and also for federal grant funds. We're working with the city to see if we can't become a certified local government to help us with some of that. So there is funding out there besides right here in Warrenton.
And have you determined how you are going to distribute these funds? What is it going to be based upon? How are you going to
Those
choose
are the pieces that we're working on, and I'm sure it will have something to do with economic ability to do it yourself. It will not go to people who show the resources that they could paint their building, but obviously people who we all know are living on fixed incomes, don't have the resources, that could use some help. The WDA is out here trying to help other business owners and property owners in this downtown business district bring them up to code.
Okay, thank you.
And once I have that application, I'll make sure that the board gets it.
Okay. I understand that there's going to be an appeal process. Terry, can you talk about what the appeal process will be? Or Counselor, can you speak to that,
absolutely.
please?
So one of the things we got comments back, and we have received a lot of comments as we went through the 90-day comment period, was what happens if I can't afford the improvements, which was a logical concept because the code is pretty black and white. Are you in violation? Do you receive a summons? Does the city take any further action? And basically what we came up with was, instead of an appeal process from a determination that there's a code violation, it's almost like a stay process. And what that process is, the property improvement plan is basically, you as a downtown business owner get a letter that says you have bricks falling off your building, and it's not an immediate health and public safety issue, it's more of an aesthetic issue. You have 10 days then to go to the city, schedule a meeting with the city administrator. We wanted to take it out of the building department. We didn't want the building commissioner who's going there doing enforcement, because in our experience, tempers can run high, people can say it's unreasonable. We wanted somebody who would be a neutral observer of it, and somebody that was at the top of the chart that could say, hey, I'm making this determination and I'm above the building commissioner. That's why we chose the city administrator, and that was also part of a comment period is, well, what if I say I don't want to do it, and then, I have a disagreement with the inspector, and I have to now go back and beg that they give me more time to do it. I'm not comfortable with that. That seemed like a really good point. So essentially how the process works is, within 10 days, you schedule this meeting and you sit down with the city administrator and you basically present a property improvement plan. And the idea is giving the property improvement plan an ability to stay the enforcement of any additional ordinance violations, entering into a written letter agreement that says, here are the progress markers I'm going to make over a period of time, whether it's over a year, 18 months, or 2 years to get it done. Here's the documentation of my income. Here's a documentation of, what I owe on the building and everything like that, so that we can have a determination made at that point in time, what is a reasonable amount of time with the income that this individual has available to fix up the building to get this done. And so then the property owner gets the property improvement plan, can be comfortable in the fact that they're working with their city, they're not in violation, they don't have new violations occurring every day, that they're basically working with the city over a period of time to improve the downtown property. So,
I guess I have a little difficulty with that, as being I think the only board member who's owned a business on Main Street. Say the city came to Jerry and I and said, your building needs to be tuck pointed. And we said, but we can't afford to tuck point the building this year. We then are going to have to provide all of our financial information.
that's not what the ordinance says.
Okay,
It
I'm
does
sorry,
not say.
I
What it says
misunderstood.
is property improvement plan, okay? And what is the determination? We kept this very vague. Whether the violation is an imminent threat to health, safety, or general welfare, because as you guys will recall, we have shut down buildings downtown because bricks have fallen off and almost injured people. Number two, the nature and extent of the violation, the estimated cost of abating the violation. That is just, what is the nature and extent of the violation? And this third part was put in by one of the main people that commented and wanted to have this in there. Any other information deemed relevant by the city administrator. If you've ever been part of these informal meetings, people will bring a whole binder and want to show you everything that they have. And so the idea is to allow them to present it and say, hey, will you look at this? Will you look at this? Will you look at this? This is what I have going on. This is what's going on with my mom's estate and whatnot. There is nothing that requires any information to be provided. Somebody could just come in and say, hey, I want to do a property improvement plan. It's going to take me 6 months to paint scrape and paint my building. Here's the cost estimate I have on it. Will the city agree to give me 6 months to do it? That's all you need. It doesn't require financial information, tax records, anything like that. So in your situation, you and Jerry could say, we don't have the money to tuck point it. It's going to take us at least a year. And you don't have to provide anything. This idea of saying any other information is because, in our experience, people want to bring everything in. And we want to have at least some control to say, well, we don't need to see that. We'll go ahead and give you the time that you're requesting to get it done. So it's supposed to be a very informal process, but gives formality to staying of any additional enforcement procedures. Because the appeal would only go, if it was truly an appeal, what an appeal would do is it'd say, I'm not in violation of the code. Okay? So this is not an appeal of whether or not you're in violation of the code. This is, look, I know I got to get this done, and if you look at the things that are in here, I understand there's some ambiguity, but I don't know that we've ever had an enforcement issue with ambiguity or the International Property Maintenance Court with ambiguity. But the idea being, it's very informal, it doesn't require specific information, and it gives people time, because that was our number one comment. I can't afford it and I need more time. It gives them both time and money, or time and the opportunity to raise the capital to be able to do the improvements. The appeal process didn't really actually make a lot of sense for what the comments we received. This seemed to make a lot more sense because the number one concern was, I don't have the money right now to make these improvements. Okay, well, that's fine. We don't mind saying this, but you got to tell us when you're going to get it done or when you think you can get it done. And if there's extenuating circumstances, we can extend that property improvement plan down the road.
Hi, my name is Carol Dean. I own 2 homes on Main Street. I also own a home in Woodridge. I am not a landlord. I live in the home in Woodridge, and I live in one of the homes on Main Street. The other home I own is next door to me. It is a duplex. It is not being rented. It will never be rented. Okay, anyway. My problem with this is several things. We all did the Pledge of Allegiance together. Oh, we did. This is not liberty, and this is not justice for all. If this is a safety issue, what's the difference between bricks falling and injuring people on Main Street or on 47 or any other street in Warrenton? What's the difference? Aren't there safety codes already in place in Warrenton for safety issues? I believe there are. There also is an ordinance for maintaining property, I believe, because we have an ordinance officer, I believe, who does that. There are rules regarding trash. There are rules regarding safety in your front yard, not having something too close to the sidewalk, and et cetera, et cetera. Enforce those. If you want Main Street to look better, make those people mow their yards. I live next door to the post office at the corner of Troy Road and Main Street. And there are, I believe, rental houses across the street from me. In the summer, their yards look terrible. Absolutely terrible. Why aren't you enforcing those? No, we've got to have some more new ones. Enforce the old ones first, and then see how the thing looks. As far as safety issues, those should be addressed, but not just on Main Street. They should be addressed everywhere in Warrenton if there is a safety issue. How is chipping paint compared to bricks falling off and killing people? I mean, that's a whole different picture. As far as the ordinance, I guess what we received in the mail is the ordinance that is so vague and full of ambiguities, it's ridiculous. When is this supposed to start? Does anybody even know? I haven't been told. Where does it begin on Main Street, and where does the overlay district end? I have no clue. Nobody's informed me of that. I would like to know that also. And, but as far as safety issues, I don't see how you can just pick out Main Street and say that's got to be safer than any place else in Warrenton if it's a safety issue. I don't believe it is just a safety issue. Anyway, that's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you.
Well, she's confused as to where, or not clear as to where the lines are. Can you pull up a map on the screen so everybody can see it? Is that possible to be done? No, yeah, that's fine, that's fine. I want to make a couple comments. one of the reasons we have a 90-day period is for people to give us input. And we've tried to take that input over this course of time and modify and make changes to the proposal based on that input. Wasn't intended to be a process where 6 of us or however many are going to support this or the staff sit down and come up with things out of the blue. Public input on this was critical. That's why we're sitting here in the 90-day time frame. So I think that needs to be also said. Some of the changes were done specifically because of the comments made by the public. As far as liberty question goes, I think when you sit here or you think about a community as a whole, the person who's maintaining their property has just as much right to hold market value as anybody else. And if you're maintaining your downtown property or your personal property wherever you live in the area and you're doing a good job of it, you have a certain investment in that. There's a certain value in that. And you have I think it's fair to say you having property next to you that is deteriorating, you have a right too. So we can't point liberty for one side and not liberty for the other side. Liberty goes to everybody. It isn't one or the other. So we can't.
What?
Everybody
Hold on a second.
who's taking care of their property or is not. Liberty's on both sides of that. Well, she's still doing that. A couple other comments. We have safety ordinances everywhere, and we try to enforce safety ordinances everywhere. I think when this whole thing started out as a discussion, we talked about could we take the whole building code and impose it with a tight fist everywhere, and that would be including downtown. And we decided to go with written ordinances where we could lay something down that we could work with. Because if we were to impose the entire code that's the building code standards put out internationally, I think you'd have a bigger problem with that than what we have here. So I think, you have to think about this. Yes, it's the next ordinance. We could have said, no, we're not going to write an next ordinance. We're going to strictly enforce the international building code. I think we'd have a lot more people down here if we were doing that. You got it?
All of Main Street frontage and the businesses and properties 100 feet on either side of Main Street. That's the Main Street Overlay District.
And I would just like to add, the Main Street Overlay District is a legal zoning district. That's an overlay district for different codes and different zoning. And, I know, to your comment that things should apply equally, we did adopt that Main Street zoning district so that there was less parking requirements for development than anywhere else. So it is a special part of the city, and it is a special district that has very little parking that deserves a variance from the parking requirements for developments in other part of the cities. There's the balcony portion of it where you can put balconies there, which you can't do in any other part of the city, with the idea that maybe it'll develop that way. And these 3 additional property maintenance code requirements are also part of it.
I've been, excuse me, I've been involved. If you want to speak, yeah. Yes. Yeah. Well, nobody can hear you from the public.
So the Main Street District are just the homes facing and businesses who face Main Street. Okay, are you going to go around to the back of my house? My houses? Or is it just what faces Main Street that you want to inspect or whatever?
Well, there's no inspection. The inspection was taken out of the ordinance. That's misinformation.
So somebody just walks by then and goes, okay, that needs paint or whatever?
It's the same way with if your grass was too tall and somebody saw it or called in a complaint. and it's in the back of your yard, or any other aspect of the property maintenance code could be enforced on your property. These additional things will operate just like the currently existing property maintenance code.
So somebody has to call in and say bricks are falling from a business and they're going to kill people.
No,
I don't get it.
I don't understand your question. What's your question?
Okay, I mean,
Can property maintenance issues in your backyard be cited? Absolutely. They can right now, even without the adoption of this.
I'm talking about this ordinance. Can you go around behind my house and tell me my house, there's an alley behind there. Can you go around to the back and say, oh, there's a little paint missing off her fence, paint the whole fence? Can you do that?
I mean, I think in your hypothetical, it's obviously a little bit exaggerated to say that there's a little paint on the fence. It would have to be a violation of the property maintenance code. That would be in the discretion of the code officers to look at it.
I mean, I don't
They
have
do
paint
this.
missing,
Can I
but,
finish,
you
ma'am?
know.
Can I finish?
Oh, yes, go ahead, I'm
So,
sorry.
they do this every day. They do enforcement on our code violation docket in which we do it. And they're the experts in determining what is a violation and enforcing the standards for property maintenance code. So, are violations of this additional downtown overlay applicable to the back of your house? Absolutely they are. Does that mean it's going to, result in multiple enforcements or multiple citations or no? Understand we have a process as well. You don't just get a ticket. We do a notice of violation, and we take time to work with the property owners first, okay? And that's a policy that the city put in place a couple of years ago to take into account some of these concerns about people not being able to afford to keep up with their house. But could you have a violation back there that this code could be enforced on? Yes, if you had a window that was not glazed, or if you had a chimney that was falling down that was visible from your backyard, or if, and the question about tuck pointing and painting, it's a deteriorating effect we've learned with these older brick buildings. If you don't keep it up, bricks just start falling out. That's literally what happens. We've learned that by experience downtown. So, could you have a violation in your backyard under this? Yes, you could. I don't know that there's a scenario that I can really participate or hypothetical that's going to say definitively this is what it's going to be, because could I can't go in your backyard. I'm not going in your backyard. Could the code officers have a complaint or view something where they have to write a notice of violation? Sure, they can absolutely do that. But they're going to work with you to try to get it resolved. The court would work with you to try to get resolved that anybody wants to come and observe our property maintenance code docket. And plus you have the ability to do the property improvement plan as well, to work with the city and have a formal plan set up where you get to present what you think is necessary and the time you need to get the property maintained on these 3 or 4
So if they can
issues.
already do all this, then why do we need this?
These are not part of the current property maintenance code. These are 3 things that are the city's adoption of the property maintenance code. These are things that we're adding back into the property maintenance code just for the downtown district, based on the complaints of the other property owners, to Alderman Ock's point, as far as windows being boarded up, windows and window sills that are completely deteriorating, peeling paint, and not just a little scratch of peeling paint, significant peeling paint. I think we all know the buildings down there that have peeling paint, and asking the city to do something about it. This was in response to downtown business owners coming and saying, can you help us out in getting downtown cleaned up? Because we've invested on our property, and we want to try to get this up to a minimum standard. This was not trying to raise the standard very high. You're talking about removing boarded up windows and scraping and repainting buildings and making sure bricks are not falling out of walls.
So, kind of catty-cornered from me, there's a gorgeous Victorian home. It's got great bones, it's super. That whole building, that whole house needs to be painted from top to bottom. Are those people going to have to spend thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars painting that house?
It'll be, if it's within the downtown historic,
It is,
then,
because it's
then
where
it'll
my
be
house
something
is.
that, we will take a look at. And I think you're talking about the historic house, correct?
No.
No, oh,
No,
well,
no,
okay.
no, the one
So-
across from the post office.
Okay, so that
It's
house,
a
for
regular
example,
home, but
that's
it's Victorian.
and I'm sure that house, it's the yellow one, the Victorian,
Right.
that has huge amounts of peeling paint, correct?
Yes, huge amounts, but it's
so-
a beautiful home.
So the idea is to go to the property owner, tell them hey, you need to get this fixed, and then work with them under a property improvement plan based on their, whatever is relevant, to give them time to get it corrected. So that it's not peeling paint as significant as it is right now.
Wow, that's a big, big thing.
Well, but you know, you can say it's a big thing, and it is a big thing because one of the things you get when you sit up here is people making comments about properties that have significantly deteriorated. Well, what's the city going to do about it?
What's one's definition of deterioration?
Well, you can drive up and down certain properties and look. It's common sense in a lot of places. If you want to walk out after the meeting with me, we can walk through downtown, and I could show you the type of things that we're talking about. This is not to be nitpicky. This is simply to make an effort to improve the downtown area. I didn't own a business downtown. I worked downtown for a number of years. The building I was in, if it didn't have boarded up windows then, it has them now, and they probably should have been boarded up then, and that's probably been 30 years ago, and we've seen literally no improvement. So why would somebody want to come down and make an investment? We had a young couple come down here about 2 years ago, wanted to make an investment in a building downtown, and they did. But because of their investment, we have an obligation, I think, to make sure that the rest of the area is up to a minimal standard. We're not talking about every place having copper ceilings and all this stuff. We're talking about simple maintenance. And we can sit here and say it's vague. There's a lot of stuff in here that's not vague. So, I mean, this is an attempt, and I think there's a significant interest on the part of some people who invested downtown to take a look at these things and saying, we are holding ourselves up to a standard. Is it unreasonable for other people to have the standard? If our community is interested in improving downtown historical, we sat down through long-range planning meetings, and the thing that comes up year after year after year is always, how do we improve historical downtown Warrenton? Well, we talked about it, and all these years, 20 years I've been around here on this council, we've done literally nothing. So now we're going to start to do something. We get public input. If there's things that need to be altered, the board has always been extremely open to taking another look at stuff. And so what I think the proper thing to do is to support the motion that we take this, and then if we have problems with it, then the board's more than willing. We're not trying to put people out of business. We're not trying to ruin downtown. We're trying to raise it to a certain standard. We're trying to help the investment that other people have in their buildings. That's what this is all about.
My husband has lived in our home for 30 years. And then all of a sudden, you have the right to tell us. I mean, my home, it doesn't have a problem. Okay, I can tell you that. That's why I feel comfortable speaking, because it has to do with the ability, can you just segregate a street like this? I mean, you can, but is it right?
Well,
Most of the people I have talked to since I got that notice in the mail on Main Street are not in favor of this at all. And this is not going to help get businesses coming into Main Street.
Nor is having buildings deteriorate going to help either. There's two sides of that discussion. And everybody had an opportunity to come down there and meet with the city and talk about issues they had. So if you're here and you have these issues, this is the time for you to talk, but there was also time to talk before this.
Well, I didn't have a problem until I got that notice in the mail and found out what the city is trying to do to one portion of the town.
We have overlay zoning districts all over town where we're trying to do different things in different areas. You know, trying to make sure that we have the proper business district along the highway for proper stores to come in that are more highway compatible. We have overlay districts up and down Highway 47 because we want to maintain certain things. You can't write a blanket thing to cover the whole city. To be effective, you have to sit down and you have to look at specific areas and you have to say to yourself, what are we trying to do? What are we trying to accomplish it and how we accomplish it? And I think if you go out and ask people in this community, is improving downtown something that the community wants to accomplish? I think the answer is yes. Resoundingly yes.
So you have other sections on 47 that have an ordinance like this?
We have ordinances that are unique in every part of the downtown. When I got on board, my concern, the reason I ran first time for city council, I did not want Highway 47 to stretch from from Main Street going north up to the South Service Road. I did not want that to turn into strip malls, and that just like you would see in O'Fallon and other place, it had character. We want to preserve the homes. We want to preserve the properties. And I sat down and wrote the ordinance to do that, to try and get the council to approve it, because we wanted to maintain the character of how you come into Warrenton. I mean, if you come into Warrenton, the old timers will say, we want the trees back, we want the trees back. That was part of the character. Well, part of the character we have now is the older homes along Highway 47. And we're not trying to stop anybody from doing anything. If somebody wants to put a donut shop in an old building on Highway 47, they have our blessing. If somebody wants to run a business, they have our blessing. But we pick specific areas and we say, what are we trying to accomplish here? And that's what we've been doing for years.
So there is a similar ordinance on a section of 47.
There's an ordinance for the downtown district on Highway 47 related to
Signs, right.
Highway 47, size, location, visibility, and I think there's some additional conditions that are on Highway 47 properties. There's also, we're working on a retail corridor ordinance that's an overlay district. I will tell you that I work with a lot of cities, and we've studied a lot of cities. These are all consistent with other municipalities. They do overlay districts all the time. For enhancement purposes, are you familiar with downtown St. Charles?
Yes.
I would encourage anybody that questions our downtown historic ordinance for property maintenance to take a look at St. Charles, where if you replace windows, you have to use the original windows, or you have to get basically retro-made windows that are extremely expensive with the weights and ropes in them. We did not want to go to a point where we're preserving a specific time period. It was just a matter of trying to preserve the buildings and get them back up to some level of maintenance. That was the only purpose of this. And one of the biggest complaints we've had, which this addresses, is the boarded up windows. Why are windows boarded up on Main Street? And I think over the last 5 years, there has been meeting after meeting where somebody has come in and said, why do we have windows boarded up on Main Street? I can't board up windows at my own house. We don't allow that, correct? So you can board up downtown, and you talk about equal treatment. You can board up downtown, but you can't board up your own house window. So we wanted to fix that, so that it does not have that aesthetic of a boarded up downtown.
So I do know there's some other people waiting to speak to,
I'm
so I'm going to go ahead and let them.
Hello. We are the current owners of the Nieberg building, and we have spent. Do what?
State your name if you would.
Oh, Lori Miller, and my husband Steve Miller, who is here. We have spent a lot of money and a lot of investment in this town. We also recently bought the burned out building that everybody's complaining about. And if you just give us a little bit of time, we are anxious to get on that one. We are 95% done with the Nieberg building. We have 2 apartments, possibly 4 apartments. They're going to be ready March 1st. So we're moving, and as you've seen, the salon is there, and it's opening, and we are the ones that are here investing. And we also invested in that other building. I will say to you, guys, we support this. Why? Because I want to make sure that my investment is in good value, and that I don't want to see anybody in jail. I don't want to see anybody feed or fined or anything like that. But I also want to see Warrenton thrive. And the way that Warrenton is going to thrive is by new investors coming in. And nobody's going to come in like us unless there's some reason to come in. And if you see boarded up buildings and you see all this stuff, it's not going to happen. And that's all I got to say. Is that fair?
No,
Thank you.
appreciate it. Anyone else? else like to come up and speak? So, very briefly, I'll tell you from my standpoint, you're never going to appease everybody. There's going to be somebody who doesn't like what's going on or what's happening, and you may feel infringed upon. I can tell you emphatically, when you're sitting up here, sometimes it does feel like you get attacked to a certain degree, and I know it's an accountability that you're holding, but understand I don't think there's anyone on this board that would ever impose on somebody's liberties, so to say. I understand, and I've taken notes on everything that everybody's come up and stated. We work very hard to not try and impose too many things, but we also, there again, to sound what Alderman Alk had said, we try and see both sides of the coin. We try and accommodate both sides of the coin. In the middle of it, some people just don't like what's being done or said, and we all have to work around that and try and work with it. I don't think we've come up with an ordinance so far that we haven't at least looked at, and if it's a practical amendment that needs to be made, we've made that adjustment, or we at least strive to try and make that adjustment. Same with this. I believe we've discussed before in open meetings about things being fluid. Sometimes they do need to be rigid so that we can hold a certain standard and keep that standard there for safety and security issues around the town. But at other times, we've actually looked at it and said maybe we do need to modify that to accommodate people in some way, shape, or form if they've come up and made an argument. So I can say in my time here, this has been a good board to work with to try and look at things and not just blindly walk in and say it's our way or the highway. So. Any other questions or comments? All right. We'll move on, and the next thing, City Administrator Terry Thorne, if you can give us some updates.
The item I have for you this evening is a request for approval of the annual flex time amounts. You had in your Dropbox the calculations on those for your approval this evening. We do this every year at this meeting for the time that was worked for the prior year.
Any questions on that? Entertain a motion to approve the flex time hours for 2019 as submitted.
Second.
Motion made by Alderman Deloy, seconded by Alderman Dyer. Roll call vote.
Yes.
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 Motion passes 5-0 with one absent.
That's all I have for you this evening.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Next, we'll hear from Maintenance and Grounds Director Brad Boozy Cruz.
Good evening, Mayor and Board. You have my monthly report.
Questions or comments on that? She's fixing you. We're trying to change the sensitivity of our mics. That's what the adjustments are about, and some of the aldermen are laughing about how sensitive it's gotten, and we'll find that happy medium. Brad, I appreciate your report. Is there anything else you have to give us?
That's all I have. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Next, we'll hear from Building Commissioner Mike Cross.
Good evening, Mayor and Board. You also have my monthly report.
We had 70 new homes, new residents this year. What was last year, do you recall?
59.
59, so that was good growth.
Yes.
Mike, are most of these going out to Warrior Ridge? Is that where the majority?
Well, they're starting to spread out now. Warrior Ridge has a majority right now.
Okay.
Also, over in Bernie Park, he's got 9 lots left over there, started out with 59.
And there are only
Walnut
9
Hollow,
left?
excuse me?
There are only 9
Yes, ma'am.
left
Yes.
unsold?
All the lots in Walnut Hollow, the new addition back there, are all currently under contract.
Okay, so I would assume this spring it's gonna boom? Is
It's
that what you're
already
telling me?
booming.
Okay.
It is.
The water tower in quick.
Yeah,
With
exactly.
the addition of 167 duplexes being built.
Okay,
Yeah, the number is deceiving when you look at, because this is number of permits,
right.
but for those permits for multifamily, it's not this number, it's 167 actual units.
Oh, 167 living units.
Yes.
That's good.
I'm okay with those numbers.
Yes.
4 commercial businesses this year, so it's been very prosperous for the city. Come along very well. We're about ready to final out the building. Hopefully this week we'll actually turn it over to Rule King from our inspection process. So, been a long time, but ready to give the building to them.
Everybody here is glad to hear that. I have so many people question me about the 2019 sign. I don't know if I need to go down there with a spray can or maybe my own paint can.
It may be considered graffiti.
Change, well, it could. It could.
Go out of my pond in my backyard, and lo and behold, there was nothing here where I could find it at any of the stores, so I ended up at Rural King on Sunday night.
Down in Woodsville.
So I'm looking forward to when it's out there.
Yes.
I think there's a lot of people looking forward to it. I think so many people, and I don't even know because I haven't bought jeans there, but I think there's a lot of men have said the $10 jeans will be a nice addition to be able to buy. I guess are they $10? Does anybody know that?
That's correct.
Okay, well, there you go. I wear a uniform for a living, so I hardly ever have to buy jeans. So, anybody have any questions for Mike? Thank you, Mike.
You're welcome.
Next, we'll hear from Director of Planning and Development, Neil Fick.
Good evening, Mayor and Board. You have a copy of my monthly planning and development report.
Questions on the report?
Neil, are there some new people that are going out to the old outlet mall?
I don't have anything new, any grand openings. I don't know if it's the weather right now, but the Driver's License Bureau will be going over there, but I don't have anything new set up
Okay.
as far as a grand opening or ribbon cutting right
Okay,
now.
well, that was one of the things I wanted to mention because I'm not sure everyone in town, I don't know, Adam, if you posted that in the paper yet, that the License Bureau was going to be moving. So one of the nice things about them going out there is there are going to be some places to park. So that will certainly be an improvement for the city and other people that need to make use of the License Bureau. So that's good.
We had a couple relocation, we've got Abracadabra that's moved at 303 Highway 47, but they haven't scheduled the grand opening. Sport and Spine Chiropractic, they relocated to 1428 North 47. And then Excel Martial Arts, they're moving into 608 East Boonslick. The IGA building is over there. And then I spoke with someone from McRoberts, and they're just waiting to get things going before they had their grand opening ceremony. Probably waiting for better weather as well.
So's everybody.
Any other questions? Okay, Neil.
Alright, so I've got the Villages of Warrior Ridge, my CUP 65. There was an application submitted for the conditional use permit for the villages. I have Mr. Matt Poston here with THD if you have any questions. We discussed section 405.286B, which we had an issue before with undersized lots. So with the conditional use, they're able to reduce that lot size to under 60. They try to keep everything at 70, but they had issues with existing utilities. So they requested 14 lots be reduced to 67 foot. They still meet the minimum requirement for the 8,400 square footage, but we've got it listed up there where it shows actually the lots, and the lots connect, so there's not going to be an issue with the size, jumping around inside that subdivision. They're all right next to each other.
Looks like there's about 6 or 7 lots that are actually going to be significantly larger than the 70s. So some are smaller, but there's also some that are quite a bit larger.
That's correct. And the average, I think, was 75 out in that subdivision. So they were real close. But like I said, the conditional use allowed for them to have, when they had issues, when they changed from the multifamily to the single family, it allowed for them to reduce under that 70-foot width. And that's what they're requesting. They try to keep everything at 7, but the existing electrical out there caused them to run into the issues that they're having right now. And like I said, there's 14 lots that they're requesting to reduce to 67 foot.
So Neil, how large, I'm going to put you on the spot here, how large are those lots at Bruni? Because those homes seem really, really close together. Did they fall into the same 70? They did.
Some of
Terry's
those-
shaking her head.
Some of those are 53, I believe is the smallest. And the only reason that this is allowed both at Bruni and here is because these had previously approved multifamily conditional uses.
Okay.
So new lots would not be allowed to do this, but we had a few existing in town that were already approved for multifamily. And I think the board felt like it's a benefit to convert them from multifamily to single family. Thus, there had to be some adjustments to be able to utilize those lots for single family homes.
Apparently it's worked well out Bruning because there's only 9 lots left.
Exactly.
And the motion was approved 7-0 with 3 absent at the January 2nd Planning and Zoning meeting.
Questions on that? That'll be a bill later on on the agenda.
That's all I have.
All right, thank you, Neil. Next, we'll hear from Chief of Police Larry Eller.
Good evening. The first item I have for you is my monthly report, if you have any questions.
Are there any questions on this report?
The only thing that surprised me is I thought that the number of drug-related incidents would be higher in December, and they actually looked like they're lower than prior months.
The cold weather kept them inside.
I guess so.
They were all busy shoplifting at Walmart and they couldn't do drugs.
Any other questions?
Next, I have several policies for approval. I'll go through this quickly. The first, police officer recruitment, we needed to change the language to include specific categories included in our background checks of potential candidates. Under use of force, we needed to change specific reporting categories for our annual use of force report. Under body-worn cameras, we added a monthly supervisory review of video and also a requirement for training. Under vehicle pursuits, we added new language, which includes a documented review and documented training yearly of our pursuit policy. Legal process is a new standard, and it covers what legal process the police department serves, which is none, other than emergency ex partes. Temporary detention is a new policy. In-car video is new. Under standard of conduct, we added a section on the abuse of position and also a section on harassment. And then performance evaluation is new. That's quite a bit of information to take in there.
Any questions on any of those?
Where are you at on the end of the tunnel on this?
I'd say it's about 98% done.
Really?
Right now we're working on indexing keywords, table of contents. These, like what you're seeing here now, is the results of us going through everything with a fine-tooth comb and finding the small little things that we missed on the large scale.
Well, then what's the next step?
Next step would be a mock assessment done
Okay.
by peer agencies, which will be coming up shortly.
And comes the microscopes for the assessment.
Exactly.
Well, probably for the public, we're working on getting the police department accredited. So it's all the standards and all the operations have to be put down and written, and they're going to be reviewed by people whose business it is to review these things, and trying to raise a higher standard and better police department for us. And that's what we've been working on for a couple of years.
Since the middle of 2017.
There you go.
And it is a really huge undertaking because I have been involved in incorporating ISO 9000, ISO 9001, which is very much like this, and the auditing is brutal. So
that part's
I'm
next.
sorry for your.
Thanks for crushing my dreams.
That's why I was concerned we might need to hire somebody else to help with this. It is a brutal process, I know for sure.
It's a brutal process to get in place, but once it's in place, it really concretes a lot of issues. If something comes up, as far as a violation, it's pretty cut and dry to if it's a violation or not for our employees in the police department. So it's very policy driven and good. It's easy. It's a lot easier.
Driven for sure.
Yes.
Document everything.
So if there's no further questions, I'll entertain a motion to approve the police officer the policies for police officer recruitment, use of force, firearms, body-worn cameras, vehicle pursuits, legal process, temporary detention, in-car videos, standard of conduct and performance evaluation policies. I almost felt like I was reading bills.
Second.
Motion made by Alderman Schultz, seconded by Alderman Miller. Roll call vote.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes. Yes.
Motion passes 5-0 with one absent. Thank you. Next, we'll hear from City Clerk Melody Root.
The only thing I have is an update on candidate filing.
Thank you. Bills or ordinance. I'll entertain a motion for the first reading of bill number 02-2020. 2020.
Second.
Motion made by Alderman Schultz, seconded by Alderman Dyer.
An ordinance approving the conditional use permit to allow an individual.
And a motion for the second reading and passage of bill number 02-2020 or 2020.
So moved.
Second.
Motion made by Alderman Dyer, seconded by Alderman Deloy.
An ordinance approving the conditional use permit.
Roll call vote.
Alderman Ock.
Yes.
Alderman Miller.
Yes.
Alderman Deloy.
Yes.
Alderman Schultz.
Yes.
Bill passes 5-0 with one absent. I'll entertain a motion for the first reading of 03-2020.
So moved.
Second.
Motion made by Alderman Deloy, seconded by Alderman Schultz.
Ordinance amending section 500.010 and 50.
A motion for the second reading and passage of bill number 03-2020.
So moved.
Second.
Motion made by Alderman Hawk, seconded by Alderman Dyer.
An ordinance amending section 500.
Yes.
Yes. Bill passes 4-1 with one absent. I'll entertain a motion for first reading of bill number 04-2020.